So welcome today. Really excited to have an ex-colleague and a new friend who he works with. So I spent 20 years in the investment banking field. Before I got the pleasure to go to performance psychology, I used to work with Daniel back in the UK. We now find ourselves here in DC, in the US, post the pandemic. And surprising question is now March 2021. We're all struggling a little bit with mental well-being. So I'm very excited to have both of them, Daniel and Ramesh, both from the Worldbank, to talk about something dear to my heart, which I call mental fitness, which is basically taking care of your mental well-being. So we're going to go through a few questions and just see how the conversation flows. So thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure, thanks. It's a pleasure.
So the first question I'm going to jump into, which I always like, it's always my kickoff because of 2020. What a year! And what a year! If I told any of you guys before in 2019 what was about to happen, no one would believe me. The first question is, what did we learn about ourselves in 2020? And kindly offline, Ramesh has agreed to go first on this question. Ramesh?
Sure, thanks, Sunny. Thanks for taking the time to work with us and trying to find out the things that are going on in the mental wellness and things. But just occurred to me, this week probably is the 1-year anniversary of working from home. Let's start from there. To answer your question, Sunny, 500,000 people died in the US due to COVID. Over 500,000, I would say. It sounds as though it's just a number, but each number is a life. And we lost a colleague of ours and actually a friend of mine in 2020. His death exposed a level of vulnerability that I was not aware of in myself. His departure forced me to prioritize human relationship at work. I've now realized that people at work are more important than work itself. That's the basic first lesson that I've learned. On the lighter side, secondly, I've also realized how resilient we are. I would have never imagined that we would be able to work from home for this long. 1 year, as I said earlier, due to the nature of work. I mean, we have never worked from home. We were not allowed to work from home because of the trading business that we are in. Of course, the technology advances helped us, but our resilience to adapt made it even more easy and possible. All right. So I learned how adaptive even I was. Those were the two lessons that comes to my mind from past 2020. Working from home.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you so much for sharing. Your opening thing about the vulnerability, I have not lost anyone, but I can't even begin to imagine what it feels like. And I think that point you just mentioned is people are more important than work, which I think I used to take connection for granted until last year. So that point you made was very powerful. And definitely the resilience, as I think I may be joking, but if you told anyone that what they were going to go through in 2020, so everybody that's here deserves a pat on the back. Like, we made it through, we showed how we're able to adapt, and whatever 2021 is going to throw at us, I'm sure we'll be able to move on from that. So thank you. That was a great set off to this conversation. Daniel, love to hear as well what you learned in 2020.
Yeah, sure. What I learned, I'll just add to what Ramesh already said, actually. And I had already written down as well the point on resilience as well, because I think, like you said already at the introduction, who would have thought we would be working from home for a year? And I said to you before the chat as well, only seeing a few people as well during that time, apart from the video chat like this, or even sometimes outside you see people, but really generally only seeing the people that you live with, which is quite strange. Yeah. And it puts I guess this is the reason why we're here as well, but it puts a sort of a strain on you mentally in a way that Ramesh, that you said, you know, we didn't even really realize perhaps that the colleagues and the people that we see every day are you know, a lot more important than the work we do, because during the pandemic, I would say we've been able to do pretty much the work that we've done in the previous years anyway, or working from home separately. But you know, you miss some of that interaction and you know, the general conversations that you can have face to face as opposed to just on a video like this. Yeah. So I think that might be enough for my answer for the first one, because you know, Ramesh already said a few things. But
yeah, thank you for sharing, Daniel. Yeah, definitely, the human contact has definitely been a big one. And just actually from what Ramesh just shared with us, and I actually reflect, me and you, Daniel, have just become parents, and I caught myself yesterday. I was actually crying in tears because my son hasn't seen any of my parents, and my dad is nearly 90. I keep thinking I have to prioritize it, but when I'm going to be able to do that, I don't know. Yeah, we have the vaccine, so that human connection is definitely been a big one. And what you just said, Daniel, I don't think we realize the mental strain that is having on us. Because when I caught myself crying, I was like, I didn't even know it was there. But as I started to reflect, it's like my son is 18 months, nearly 2, and he's not seeing any of my parents.
Yeah.
So.
I think also, sorry to interrupt, but what makes it even more challenging in a way is if someone had told you this was going to last for 6 months or a year, maybe you could handle it differently, but without sort of an end date to the whole thing, it makes it even more frustrating in a way, because you just don't know when it will end. And when, like you said, when you can see your family again.
But I mean, I want to definitely stay on the positive side of how resilient we are and what Ramesh said about us adapting. So for me, 2021 is a bit scary, but I do think after we've been through last year, I have a little bit more of a positive mind frame in that what's going to come, we're going to find a way of dealing with it, coming out through it. So I'm going to go to the next question, and I put this as challenges. I don't want to call it challenges. I'm going to change it. What's our performance and well-being aspirations for 2021? I don't know who wants to take that one. Ramesh?
Okay, I'll do it. Working from home has posed a challenge of balancing work and life. For people with kids, it's a bigger challenge. That's the majority of the people, and for others, with the parents at home, is all taking care of them, and work is another challenge. So. For each one of them, the challenge comes in different ways. But definitely, work-life balance is a big challenge that was posed to us in the last 1 year. I start the work around 7:30 a.m., but there's no end to it. I mean, when we work from home, I need to catch my carpool. I need to get my bus schedule to leave. So there is a deadline to leave. Even though after coming back home, you probably get back to your office emails. But now, either there's no end at the end of the day, end of work at the end of the day. It goes on, or I tend to go back to looking at my emails and work after dinner. So that's a big challenge these days, having that balance between work and life.
Yeah. Totally struggling with the same thing myself, Ramesh, even though I know better because I'm coaching it. I find myself keep checking my emails all the time. And I'm like, putting those boundaries in place is very hard. Where when we had the commute, it was almost like the brain knew I'm leaving work and I'm home now. So switch.
Totally.
With especially people who live in a single apartment where they said their computer is in their living room. So every time they're looking at their computer, they keep thinking, I need to do this. I need to go back.
Yeah. Totally.
Something I just heard recently it was shocking to me. So I did a workshop with a group, and it turns out that we're now working 6 days a week because people they're still checking their computers on Sunday. and literally we rarely have Saturday off. And this is probably why we're all feeling so burnt out. If we step back, we're working 6 days a week. So it's something I'm going to come back to, is flipping that. We call it work-life balance. But the person on the call said it should be life-work balance. So it's like...
Oh, I never realized that. Yes.
It shocked me as well when they said it. And I was like, I'm going to take that one on board. So Daniel, over to you on performance and well-being aspirations.
Yeah. No, and I totally agree with you on switching the order of work-life balance. You know, they say that there's the expression, do you live to work or work to live as well, right? So it's on a similar note. But in terms of my aspirations as well for 2021, let's just say also that what you touched on already, that I'm a lot more optimistic for this year. 2021 than and maybe not start of last year, because then we didn't know what was coming, but middle of last year, let's say.
Okay.
Because I think the worst is hopefully behind us, and you know, hopefully we can start to look forward very soon. Yeah. So that makes me very excited, and generally, I would say also to Ramesh's point that, you know, everyone's having their own struggles, and for myself as well, that it's been mainly, you know, trying to juggle many different things with a little baby at home, and, you know, manage to get your sleep from time to time. But I would say I also sympathize a lot with the people who are actually stuck at home alone, the people who lived by themselves at the start of this, and maybe far away from their family, and you know, it's particularly challenging, I imagine, if you're on your own through all of this. But anyway, hopefully we are at the end of it soon, and so I would say the challenges for the next year will be, you know, just to hold out for the last few months, hopefully, even though we don't really know the end date. But then, you know, I guess the question will be, will we go back to normal or not? Probably not immediately. But anyway, that on your point of work-life balance, I think one of the challenges maybe, or one of the things I promised myself is, you know, try to focus more on keeping that balance, and like you say, not checking in on a weekend if you don't have to, and generally do things, even, you know, within what we can do at the moment to, you know, help yourself, you know, cheer yourself up. And I know one of your other questions is about joy later, but I think there are various things that we can do at the moment to try and, you know, maintain, you know, what should I say, a certain level of health and well-being. But yeah, I'm very excited about seeing my family later. So I think that's already affected my well-being in a way, even though it hasn't happened yet.
Okay, thank you. So I like that question. So the fact that we can almost see the optimism there now with the vaccine and things like that, that's actually boosting our well-being. Whereas last year, we didn't even know there wasn't even a vaccine. So that's a good one. And a point you just mentioned of how, and Ramesh mentioned this as well, we're all going through different challenges. Like us with kids, yes, we're going through a challenge, but the people who have been on their own for a year, I can't even begin to tell you, like, I couldn't imagine going through that, and they're having their challenges. And I think, like, a lot of people want us to go back to normal, but I don't know if we're ever going to go back to normal, because we've all seen a level of vulnerability. You know, we've all seen into each other's houses. We know that we've got other family going on and we have other commitments. So it's not like before where we were just in the office and you just thought that this person was a robot. You now see that, no, they're not a robot. So I would love us to be able to reimagine that human side when we do get back, and know that we all of us are juggling a lot of different things. So how do we have that common understanding for each other where people need help here or there?
It's a new normal.
It is a new normal.
I think also the day when we go back to work, maybe we'll be more appreciative of our colleagues, and definitely more understanding, like you say, and hopefully that will mean that we'll be a little bit nicer to each other as well.
We needed a year away to really appreciate how much we miss each other. I like each other. So this brings me to the next question. It's a big question I've asked is, how do you plan for joy? And this question comes from where, if you think of like, we have an emotional energy tank, right? And last year, all of a sudden, everything that tops up that tank, going to see your friends, going to the cinema, going anywhere, or whatever we normally did was just taken away like that. And then at the start of last year, where we were all working from home, at first we were like, yeah, I'm gonna do this project. I'm gonna learn a new language, and it was easy to do. But then by the second part of the year, I don't know if you remember, lockdown fatigue started creeping in, and it was harder. So now we're in 2021. That's a big question I want to ask: is how do you plan for joy to get through this? Ramesh?
Okay, I'll go again. I mean, I can relate to your first to your thing of I'll do that, I'll do this when we started working from home. My project, one of the projects at that time was cleaning one room at a time. It never happened, still remains the same. But speaking of the joy, my joy is my dog, Rosie. And Daniel might be tired of hearing this. I keep talking about this all the time. Fortunately, I have her around all the time. So that's my first joy in my life here. Then spring is coming, and I love spending time with my sister and helping her with her vegetable garden. That's also more fulfilling when you see that garden coming up. So those are the things that I'm looking forward to.
Nice. That's good.
Thanks, Andy.
Daniel?
Yeah. Now I sort of already talked a little bit about the joy. For me, I would say I always used to enjoy, similar to Ramesh, seeing family, for example, and both here in DC, whatever family I have here, but also going home to Sweden to see my family. That was maybe the highlight of the year for me as well, which it hasn't happened now for a while, but I do look forward to my next visit. So generally seeing family, but also friends, and friends, I guess we can include our colleagues as well. So that's always been a pleasure, but yeah, something that we haven't had this year, but something that I look forward to. So some of the things that I can do on my own then is I like to go outside. I used to go running. And some other little trips out to DC. I used to go pick some peaches in the summer and things like that. Nothing too complicated, but actually what I realized, because you asked this question before, and when I thought about it, was I enjoy doing all of these things because in part it also lets you forget about the pandemic and all the other things that are going on. So I think anytime you do something that you enjoy or something that's fun, even these days, you seem to forget about it. And when you come home and turn on the TV, maybe you'll be reminded again. But at least for a moment, then you can relax and, like you say, top up on your recharge your battery, if you like. But like Ramesh said already, one of the things was I thought if I had a lot of time, I could read all my books that I have that I haven't read yet. And so in part, I think is because we imagine we had a lot more spare time than we actually do. But also, I think the last year has been challenging in its own way. And sometimes the things that I used to enjoy the most, they weren't always as enjoyable. And sometimes I didn't find the motivation to open a book at the end of the day, even if I had imagined before that that's what I would do if I had a little bit of time left. So instead, maybe I'd do something different or just lie down on the sofa.
I love that answer, Daniel, because it's true where some of the things we used to enjoy, all of a sudden last year, it wasn't that enjoyable because we were just more mentally drained. I wanted to read loads of books. This was the year I was going to read all the books. started with a few books. I went on to audiobook, but then I was just always tired or mentally drained.
Yeah.
And I loved what both of you said about, Ramesh going to the vegetable garden with your sister, and you actually just going out in nature, anything that just can take your mind off it so that you can forget what's going on and just remember just enjoy nature and enjoy the simple things in life. That's been so important. I mean, when I think I moved here to DC, I've only ever been to DC maybe four, 5 times because the pandemic hit and trying to look after the babies. I'm really looking forward to going to see the cherry blossoms when they come this year. Your friend is coming over. We're going to go to National Harbor. So those little things, I think, I appreciate them a lot more. And also being aware that with the pandemic, what used to give you joy before might not be giving you joy, in this period. So trying to be prioritizing that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So we are coming up to the final question, and this one is: what would you like to develop in your mental fitness, or you can call it mental well-being, going forward into 2021? So, Daniel, I'm going to come to, because I've always gone to Ramesh.
That's fair. That's fair. I'll get started. What do I want to develop? This is a tricky one also. I feel resilience, we already talked about it. So I think, that we trained on that all year. But develop on my mental fitness, I guess it's just, one is, having that mindset of being able to switch off from work or switch off from even the news cycles, the pandemic or the election, if you like, and just to do some of the things that you enjoy more. And we already said it, go out in nature, go hiking maybe, because when you're there, there is nothing to remind you of all the troubles in the world, for example. And so maybe dedicate more time or once a week to do those things that we enjoy more, because I guess we've learned all this year that these are some of the important things, but maybe we don't allow ourselves enough time to do it, especially not on a regular basis. So maybe setting aside more time for those things, and family as well, of course. And then, like I said before, I guess the insights simply of, the appreciation for our colleagues and the interactions that we have at work means that we'll be more understanding and nicer to our colleagues. So I guess I'll go along with those two themes generally.
Yeah. Those are brilliant themes, actually. Because I think we didn't used to dedicate enough time to these things that bring us joy. And something you just said, I haven't had it said like that, but switching off is such a hard skill to do. Because now I'm finding a lot of people are struggling with sleep because we've been under so much stress and pressure and uncertainty. We weren't meant to be. It's almost like, I don't know if you've had a fight or flight, but if you switch on the news, you'll be in a constant state of fight or flight. And then you go to try and go to sleep and your brain is just doing loads and loads of calculations. So switching off is definitely going to be anything I can find, like what you said, in nature, where you can just get immersed in that and then forget about all the worries in the world. Is going to be a big one.
Yeah.
And I love your last point of being kinder to each other. So when we go back, not like within a year we'll go back to normal and like the person is annoying me and sending messages of how annoying. Let's try and remember the goodwill that we said.
Yeah, I read somewhere it takes 18 months for humans to forget. So I guess we'll be nice for a little while.
Well, let's enjoy that 18 months.
Yeah.
So to finish us off, Ramesh.
Sure. To your point of switching off and sleep, I'm trying to set a habit to go to bed on time and spend at least some time reading a book. I'm trying to avoid looking at office emails after going to bed. So that's kind of switching off and picking up a book and reading nighttime is what I'm looking forward to. I'm more working on, actually.
Okay. How is it going so far?
It creeps in. The email creeps in once in a while. It's it's tough. Have to keep my phone away from my bed, and yeah, it's getting there.
Okay. Good luck with the habit.
Thank you.
My wife, unfortunately, sorry, I'm going to throw my wife under the bus, but she always brings the phone into the bed. So I definitely think keeping the phone out of the bedroom is definitely a winner if you can. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for giving me your time. I hope you found this insightful, and it's been a pleasure talking about mental well-being with you guys. So
yeah, our pleasure.
All right.
Thanks, Sunny. Thanks for all the things that you're doing, and thanks for sharing your insights into how you are seeing outside from our world. So,
yeah, and thank you very much for letting us, I guess, reflect on these things, because it's been a whole year. We didn't really think about it too much as well. So
I agree with Dana.
Yeah. Was there anything that surprised you from the questions when you were reflecting?
Well, generally. I just thought the solutions to many of the problems, or the way we recharge, is very simple little things. Like Ramesh said, you go out to your vegetable plots, or like I said, go running, or go into the nature, things that we can do very easily. But I guess it's, the reason for this call as well, the mind plays some tricks on you sometimes, that you start thinking some negative thoughts, or when you're a little bit pessimistic, you maybe you don't think about these opportunities, the things that you can do in your everyday life.
Wow, that's a big one actually, Daniel. You just, the mind, like when you don't tune into the mind and you're not aware what it's doing and it's in autopilot, it takes you down rabbit holes you do not want to go down, and then you find yourself doing things and you're like, why? This is not good for my mental well-being at all.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Ramesh, was there anything that surprised you?
It's not a surprise, but we haven't sat down and thought about these questions. These are all simple, basic questions that one has to think about to have a better mental well-being. But I've never sat down and thought about it. That was a surprise to me, saying, how didn't I think about these things? Yeah.
Yeah. I've got to say, Ramesh, your first answer surprised me, because I haven't met anyone who's lost anyone. And it did actually make me start to think of the impact that can have on us.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't our team member, Daniel, and we were all, I mean, he was our boss, and it was a very close team, a small team, and it was a big loss for us.
Yeah, that one made me kind of, I have to digest that one and reflect that, this is some people didn't come through this, so we have to kind of appreciate the kind of environment we need to create when we come back. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.